Hello everyone! Today's tutorial is going to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ironing board cover. I was in desperate need of a new one, and since this is such an easy project, I figure why not just make my own? And I'm glad I did because this was a really easy project. So next time if I ever want to change this up, I know that it can easily be done. There's not much you're really going to need for this project other than a yard of fabric and a yard of Insole Bright interfacing or Insole fleece, or even if you're doing this project with an old ironing board cover, you can use the same padding from that cover and it will also save you a little money. I will show you how to do both ways in this video. So if you're going to start completely from scratch making your own, grab your ironing board and you're going to trace this out onto some paper. Once it's traced out, then you're going to measure a 2-inch seam allowance all the way around the outline. So I just start with the straight edges first, and then I'll slowly eye it going around those curves. Once you have your pattern sketched out, going to your fabric, you're going to pin it down and cut it out. Then I will pin it down to my Insole Bright interfacing and cut this out as well. Now if you're using an old ironing board cover, the first thing you want to do is take a seam ripper and you're going to remove the binding from the edge all the way around. Then you're going to go back and then you're going to go back through and remove the stitching holding the fabric to the padding and take this apart as well. Then you can lay this piece flat and use it as your pattern piece to cut it out from your new fabric. Either way you do it, the next thing you're going to do is lay your fabric on top of your padding and we're going to pin this together. We're going to stitch them together with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Grab your package of bias tape and with the shorter side of your bias tape on top, we're going to tuck the edge of our pattern into the middle of the bias tape, and then we will sew this down right before that edge. Make sure you start about 1 inch below the edge of your bias tape. The reason you want to have your shorter bias tape edge on top is so that when you're stitching, it's almost a guarantee that the bottom edge will be caught in the stitch, since you can't really see it when you're sewing. When you get to the corners, the bias tape should easily stretch and adjust to curve around with the corner. So just take your time laying it out right and sew in little sections at a time while going around the curve. When you get to the end, make sure that you leave about 1 inch or 2 of bias tape open. So you should have something like this. I'm going to cut off my excess bias tape. So I'll have something like this where it's open. The way that I measured out my elastic is I took the original piece of cording elastic and I stretched it as far as it could go. That gave me about a yard. So I went to my new elastic and I basically stretched it out till I felt the same amount of tension at 1 yard. That ended up leaving me with about 18 inches. And since the cording was in half, I'm going to double that, so that'll make a yard. And I will add a 1-inch seam allowance. So I will be cutting out a 37-inch piece of elastic. Going to the ends of my elastic, I'm going to add a safety pin to each end. You're going to take a safety pin on one end and start threading it through the channel of the bias tape. This is a little tedious, so take your time and make sure you have a good hold on that elastic so you don't lose any of your progress. Once you get a good amount threaded through, you can always take another safety pin, and I'm going to pin it right in the middle of the safety pin in the channel. That way it stays in place when I go back and move all the gathers around to give me more room to work with. When the other end gets close to the opening, pin this down so it doesn't get lost inside. Then you can continue threading the elastic through all the way around. Once you get to the other side opening, I'm going to pin this down so it won't get lost back inside. And I'm just going to adjust the gathers around a bit so they're not too consolidated on one side. Take the ends of your elastic and pull them out a little bit, and then you're going to overlap the ends about 1 inch. We're going to sew these together a few times to make sure that it's secure. So I'm just going to do a back stitch about 3 or 4 times in 3 different spots. That way I know it's secure. Then I'm going to pull on the bias tape a little bit so that the elastic gets tucked inside. And then from here, I'm going to fold over the bias tape and layer the second one on top, making sure they're nice and evenly lined up together. And I'll pin it in place. For the top bias tape edge, I'm just going to fold it over so it has a nice finished edge. Once again, making sure everything's lined up, and I will pin this in place as well. Then I'll go back through and sew this down. I'll go through one more time, adjusting all of the gathers, making sure everything is evened out, and then I can put it onto my ironing board. And there you have it, your brand new ironing board cover. This is a very, 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 very easy project. So this is great for any kind of beginner. And having an ironing board is pretty important because you do a ton of ironing when you do a lot of sewing projects. But I love how this is easily adjustable to any size ironing board. But I'm excited to use this in my future videos and for a touch of fun. And I love how I can easily change this out whenever I want. I love that I was able to put this together in about an hour, but no more than 2. So I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Please subscribe down below if you have not already for more fun projects coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!